like your work ethic or how you make connections with people? Did the university help a lot, or?
Yeah, I mean, let me backtrack a little bit. So one of the questions I always get is, why Turkey? Why are you here? I'm Chinese American. I was born in China.
It's actually one of the questions.
Grew up in the U.S. Right? So it's strange for a Chinese American to be in Turkey, perhaps. So I came in Turkey 12 years ago in 2010. I graduated in 2006. So between 2006 and 2010, I worked in finance in the U.S. A lot of Harvard grads gets recruited by Wall Street to go work in finance. So I did that. And after a couple of years in finance, usually people go to business school. So I was about to do that as well. Why did I do finance? Did I love it? I'm not sure. I think when we're young, there's a lot of things we're exploring still, trying to understand what we want to do, what we're good at. So at that time, I wasn't quite sure what it is I wanted to do. So I got recruited, and it was a good job with a good salary, so I said, why not? Let's go for it. And then when I was thinking about what to do next after finance, well, everyone's going to business school, so maybe that was the right move. But I wasn't quite sure. And the more that you're living life, the more it is that you want to figure out, well, is this really what I want to spend time on? The older you get, the more precious your time becomes. So I was about 25, going 26, and I was like, well, let me really understand whether business school is the right thing for me or not. Let me try to explore something that I truly want to do, truly am interested in. So I really wanted to work in economic development at the time. So I came to Turkey with an NGO that was working in economic development. The NGO's name is Endeavor, so they actually help entrepreneurs in developing markets. They help build startup ecosystems in developing markets, and the idea is that through the startup ecosystem, that will bring a lot of top quality entrepreneurs, top quality startup firms, and that'll have a ripple effect in terms of bringing innovation and knowledge-based work and technology into developing a market. So I thought that was a really noble mission. Came to Turkey to work with them. Then got inspired by what they were doing, saw the problems in this market, and fast forward 3 years later, in 2013, then I started Paraşüt. So that's the background for all of that. Now, did Harvard help? Probably, certainly. The fact that you guys have heard of that school gives my resume an advantage for sure. So I think having Harvard on my resume makes people more receptive. I have a stamp of approval from a pretty good stamp, I guess. So it was helpful when I wanted to talk to venture capital firms. It was helpful when I wanted to talk to co-founders. It was definitely very helpful. But after that, then it's all about you, right? So a stamp of approval will get you through the door, but it's who you are, your characteristics, your work ethic, your honesty, your vision that's going to get you the rest of the way. So it always helps to have a head start, but then the rest of it depends on you.
Definitely. My next question would be, why did you start Paraşüt, and how did you get the idea of Paraşüt? Actually, you said you came here with the NGO, and they were targeting developing markets. So how exactly did you get into the financial aspect of Turkey and targeting small businesses to make them grow while you grow with them?
Right. So remember, I worked in finance for 4 years, so somewhere in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about, okay, in the realm of finance, what problems are there? And then when I came to Turkey to work with startups, with this NGO to advise other startups, one of the areas I was helping them with was finance. So as I was working with these startups, I saw firsthand, these are top quality entrepreneurs, but when it came to managing their finances, they were always relying on Excel sheets,
are like some other solutions, but they weren't affordable for small businesses, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. The solutions that were in the market were made for large enterprises, and so all the small businesses have to rely on Excel or paper and pen. Not an ideal way. So for me, there was a no-brainer. It was just something I knew. It was a big problem in the market, and so I thought, okay, we have to solve this.
Now, as a foreigner starting a company in Turkey, in a country that does not have a lot of English speakers, a country that's kind of closed to the startup idea in general, especially in 2013, for example, what are some struggles that you faced as a co-founder who doesn't speak fluent Turkish, who hasn't lived in the country a lot, and who is very like, has hardships expressing himself in his own language? And do you ever think to yourself like, or you wished that you started this in the US, for example, or would it have been easier to start this in the US, in your opinion?
So when I saw the problem, I fell in love with the problem. This was something I needed to solve. So the rest of it for me, all these obstacles, whether I was a foreigner, whether I spoke the language, those were just details. I didn't even care about those details. I figured one way or another, I would figure out how to solve it, right? The problem I absolutely loved. And I think for you guys, the international students in the audience, I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? Because if you find a problem that you absolutely have to solve, then any other obstacles are just small details in your way. You'll figure out a way to get over them. So I didn't really consider not speaking the language, all these other issues as real issues. And then, of course, when I was starting the business, I did have, at the very beginning, good co-founders who are Turkish, who helped me out. And then I built a great team around me, who then I relied on for sales in Turkish, marketing in Turkish, all of that. I was able to build a great team to help me deal with those obstacles. So it wasn't ever a big issue. Now, one thing that you guys will know about Turkey is that it is quite receptive to foreigners as well. So again, they open doors for you. So people will like to talk to you because you're a foreigner, and once you get in the door, then it's up to you to make sure that you establish the relationships, or you prove yourself to do the rest of the work. Now the Paraşüt, it's not a unique idea because in more developed markets like North America or Europe, there are software that people have built maybe 5 years, 10 years ahead of us who are aiming at the problem. Because, I mean, again, running your finances properly is fundamental to small businesses, to any business. And there are businesses everywhere, so in more developed markets, of course, they're a couple of years ahead. So they've already built software to solve the problem. So I don't try to think, I mean, if I were in the US, if I didn't come to Turkey, what would have happened in a parallel universe, what that life would look like? I try not to think about that too much because I happen to be here and I happen to fall in love with the problem that was in front of me. So if I were in the US, probably I wouldn't start this business. Probably, maybe I wouldn't even start a business. Maybe I would be in business school working now in a large corporation or back in finance somewhere. So that might have been a very different life.
Great. Another thing is, not only as a foreigner, but as a person starting a business, what are some hardships that you faced? Like when it comes to not being in your country, or like the business life in general, what things stood in your way? And did it get easier with time?
The challenges you have at each stage are always going to be different. The big problems you have at the beginning will seem like small problems later on. So big problems at the beginning. So when we're like a 4-person, 5-person team, or let's say a 10-person team, losing one person was just devastating. That's 10th of your team. You've really built a bond with that person. If you lost that person, you felt like you did something wrong. So I struggled at the beginning with making sure that I was doing the best as a leader, making making sure that I was able to retain everyone and recruit the best people. Now, when you're a 50-person team, 100-person team, different challenges come in. In the beginning days too, fundraising was hard. Going out there with no customers, trying to prove yourself that you have a great idea with great execution, trying to get venture capital, that was hard. And later on, when you build traction, it becomes easier and easier. So for the entrepreneurship journey, it's like the faster you can grow the business, the more challenges you'll have, you'll encounter. Those challenges will help you grow as a leader. Now, if you ever get to a stage where you're not facing so many challenges, then the actual question is, okay, what am I doing wrong? Am I not growing fast enough? Am I not being ambitious enough? Am I not
Start
taking
seeking
initiative?
challenges.
You absolutely do, yeah. If you talk to entrepreneurs, a lot of them will recommend meditation books, self-help books, philosophy books, and there's a common trend. Why? Because it is a very hard thing to do. It's running a marathon, but I don't know, climbing hills and dodging obstacles.
And it never finishes.
Never finishes, and you do feel like the biggest scare always is failure, right? Now, in that example you gave, so I'm always thinking, okay, what are my friends from college doing, right? We're supposed to be successful as Harvard grads. What are they doing? If they're still working in finance, maybe they're a VP of an investment bank right now or a partner at a hedge fund. Meanwhile, I'm struggling as an entrepreneur. What happens if I fail? What happens if, the last 10 years I spent, 7 years I spent, all means nothing? That was always a big scare for me. So that was something that it takes a lot of psychological management to try to deal with that all the time.
So at the start, it's more of a psychological war, where at the start, running the company is more personal, and then as the challenges grow bigger and bigger, you kind of pass the personal level and focus on growing the business as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the psychological challenges are always there. At the beginning of the company, the challenge would be to recruit the team, to get the resources, the funding, to get the product launched, to figure out what the customers want, to make sure that your product actually matches what they want, to say yes to certain requests from customers, say no to other requests, to pick the right direction, because at the beginning there's so many different directions. And then it becomes, okay, now you have a 20-person team, 30-person team. What kind of organization are you going to build? What kind of company culture are you going to build? When you're a 100-person team, the challenges may become different. How do you communicate across all the different employees at the company? Launching new products, right? So maybe you're not a one-product company, you're a multi-product, multi-channel company. So all those challenges become different at each stage, but throughout the entire journey, it's always a personal, psychological marathon to run.
That's great. Well, as a person who was leading and as a person who is running a company for almost 10 years, what do you think are the things that every CEO should focus on, or every leader should focus on when running something, or when being responsible for something this big?
Well, that's hard. I mean, I'm right now running a business with over 100 employees, but for me to advise someone who's running a 10-person business would be different, and I probably wouldn't have any advice for someone who's running a 1,000-person business. That's a hard question. I mean,
Say, what's the advice for people who are running 10, 50 person business?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are starting a business out of college, right, there's going to be some kind of problem, some kind of product you want to develop, and at the beginning it's always to make sure that you get that right. Really talking to customers, really knowing what they need, getting the product out, making sure that you distribute the product, that there's a cost-efficient way of marketing or selling that product. So when you're just first starting out, that's what you really, really care about, getting that down, right?
So the customer basically to obsessed with the customer and the customer experience at the start is what builds a company further and further.
Yeah, I mean at the beginning. When you're a bigger team, then you'll have other things to worry about. But at the beginning, just really think about the customer and the product.
Okay, what are the major things that helped with the expansion and the growth of Parachute to what it has become today? Like for example, you already mentioned that the choice of country, Turkey, the problem was already in Turkey, and the solution that you offered was great at the time. What other advantages or what other things helped Parachute grow this?
Yeah, so it is interesting. So for me, the problem was obvious, the solution was obvious, and I think if you guys do come across a problem that you fall in love with, then the solution to you will be obvious. To everyone else, they won't be, or else someone probably would already have tried to build that startup. So when I first started pitching the idea for Paraşüt, I remember people saying, look, Sean, that sounds nice and all if you're in the US, right? But this is Turkey, and people don't really want to use software. No one has any idea what the cloud is. So it's not going to work. And I thought, well, why not? Why isn't it going to work? I mean, if this makes, managing your finances 100 times easier, 100 times faster, 100 times cheaper, why wouldn't it work? So for me, it was absolutely a no-brainer. Now, I think when you guys go out and do find that problem, you'll have people saying, look, it's not going to work. But to you, you're going to have to, if you love the problem so much and the solution is so obvious, then you just have to do it. What was the rest of your question?
I was saying basically what contributed to the success.
What helped grow it, yeah. So, I mean, again, so the problem was so obvious, the market was so obvious, and so to me, like, it was inevitable that it was going to grow. There's a couple of things that helped. Naturally, it was going to grow because the problem was there. It was going to grow because we had a kick-ass product. The product was really, really good. It worked. It was simple to use. It had the right pricing model, so it was subscription-based. You didn't have to buy the entire thing up front. You paid as you went. So the business model was perfect for the small business market. And also there was a digitization wave. So the government had regulations to digitize small businesses. So there are regulations called e-invoice, e-fatura, that require businesses to start issuing invoices electronically and start dealing with other financial transactions electronically. So there was a regulatory wave that made it work as well. And then, of course, once we got in the market, once we started talking about cloud software as a service, then I like to say, we inspired other companies in the market to also start doing cloud software. So then you had other financial management companies similar to ours who came along, trying to do what we do. But then you had companies that are doing other things like CRM, customer management, HR management, stock management, e-commerce companies, e-commerce platforms. A bunch of companies started saying, look, cloud software is the right software for small businesses. And so now there's an entire ecosystem of software as a service companies in Turkey, digitizing all the small businesses in Turkey. So there's a snowball effect that's going on.
So it was the right product at the right place at the right time, basically.
Yeah, there's never a right time until you make it a right time. So we made it the right time with the right product. But then in hindsight, you would say it's the right time, right product.
Nice. I wanted to ask also about this at the start of the journey. How long did it take you guys to develop the software itself? And how did you guys overcome, like, probably you were more than one co-founder, more than one person working on it. Like, how hard was it to come up at the end with a product that all of you guys are proud of and that's perfect to all of you guys?
Yeah, the product never finishes. We're not finished building the product. We're still building the product. Are we proud of the product? Yes. Are we 100% satisfied with the product? Never. So it's going to keep developing. It never finishes. I had two co-founders with me, so three of us. Andash and Fari. Andash was working on the back end. I was working on the front end, so we were coding. Fari was working on the design, so we got a first version out that we started talking to customers with and venture capital firms with in about 5 months. And then once we got the funding, started building a development team, hiring more developers and designers. Then we got a version that we felt comfortable selling to customers, actually charging money to customers in about another 6 months. So all in all, a little bit, around a year to get the first version and start charging customers. But that's only, I mean, like I said, it never finishes. So over the last 8 years now, we still continue to work on building the product. So it's an ever-evolving journey. And we have multiple products now because it is a big market with different needs. So, hopefully, the bigger we grow, the better the main product becomes, but then we might be launching a lot of other products as well to address different needs in the market.
And at the start, how did you convince your first customers to purchase your product or to trust you when you guys were just a new company and a new concept in Turkey?
Right. There's this idea of a technology adoption curve. You guys may have run across it. There's always going to be early adopters for something. Again, the problem was obvious to me, the solution was obvious to me. The problem and the solution were obvious to other people in that market as well. Not everyone, but there were other people thinking like us. And those are the people we wanted to find at the beginning that we were able to find. So our early adopters, our early supporters. Now this is maybe not your mainstream guy who, if you go to, I don't know, Kapalı Çarşı, that may not be the person. I'm stereotyping here, it's very bad of me, but this is your, I don't know, tech geek that was like us working in an office somewhere who really wanted to solve his financial management issues and was willing to maybe deal with not complete product as long as it did one thing really good for him, which at the time, at the beginning, was invoicing. So we found those guys, and then with the support of those guys, we iterated on the product, built more features, made the product better, and then was able to make the product more complete for the second wave of people. And using those support, then, with more resources, hired more people, we made the product better for the third wave of people, and it keeps on going like that.
That's great. Okay, as the last question, what would you advise all the audience today that we have, all the young entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting a company one day, maybe out of college, maybe after a few years, they have an idea and they want to pursue it. What's your advice to them?
There's a lot of cliche things I can say. I think, when I'm saying like fall in love with the problem, obviously you guys maybe have heard of that before, but it definitely really helps. If you fall in love with the problem, if you really want to develop a solution, if you really believe in it, then any other obstacle that comes along is gonna look not that important to you guys. If you fall in love with the problem, then probably there won't be a failure because you're gonna just overcome all the hurdles. And deep down inside it's gonna work anyway. So maybe the road is a bit longer than what you expected, but at the end of the day, you're gonna make it happen. It's gonna work. So that would really help you overcome a lot of things. So I think for you guys right now, I didn't know when I was, if I were sitting in the audience right now at your age, I didn't know what I wanted to work on. But it's about exploring. Whatever you guys are studying, explore that. Talk to other people. Talk to older people who you respect. Find a mentor. So have that person help you explore. But explore a lot of things until you really kind of nail down what it is that you want to work on. That'll probably be the most important thing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sean, for your time. My questions are finished, but now we're going to take questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. Yeah, I know, we're waiting for
Let's
the
go with that one first.
Okay, let's start with you.
Actually, my question is that how did you find that your idea is worth trying? Because like we all do have lots of things in our mind, but like what was this part that made you push through? That made you like, okay, this idea is worth trying, and I have to work on it. And I mean, like beyond all those cliche that you're like, okay, believe in yourself, whatever you're thinking is okay, and go for it. We all know it, but like based on our age, is not really the thing that we actually. For example, I have an idea in my head. I'm just like, what are this part and what are the things that I should take for myself to just go through it?
So the question was, how did I know the idea was worth trying? Now, I am a pretty rational guy. I'm a pretty number-based guy. I studied economics in college, and but when it comes to certain decisions, I don't think it's a rational decision. It was more to me. I have to do this. Is it worth trying? I don't know, but I have to do it.
Okay, you just.
So it was just that I have to do it. I don't know. You fall in love with a guy or a girl, you're like, okay, no, I have to be with that person. Maybe it's one of those things. You have a great hobby that you really love. I just have to go out there every 6 a.m. to ride my bicycle and train for this triathlon I'm going to do. Is it rational? Probably not. Do I want to do it? Do I love doing it? Yes. So it was more like that to me, that I just have to do it.
So like, how did you keep like this mindset through the journey of yourself? Because like it's a long-term thing. So like,
Yeah,
how did you keep
so
yourself?
how did I keep this mindset through? Now, this was my first startup, so maybe I was a bit more naive with it. So I let my emotions kind of guide me a little bit more. Second time around, knowing what I know now, maybe it's a bit harder to keep that mindset in. Or maybe it'll be the same thing, figuring out a problem that I really want to work on. So I don't know that yet. I won't be able to answer that. But the first time around was, I just had to figure it out. Failure was not an option. I knew it wasn't going to fail. I just had to push through. I had to figure out how to solve this problem. And so yeah, so I mean, I just kept pushing myself, and whenever there were challenges, I realized, first set of challenges I had, it was really hard to deal with. Maybe it took a month for me to overcome psychologically. It's usually all psychological game for me to psychologically overcome that challenge. But then I recognized the pattern. The second challenge that came along, even if it was bigger than the first challenge, that would take a week. Third challenge came along, even if it was bigger than the second challenge, would take a day. And then it just somehow, you recognize this pattern, you recognize how to manage your psychology, motivate yourself, recognize when you're, maybe in a psychological rut that you need to overcome. And so this is just all part of learning and growing, and yeah, you learn how to do that.
Thank you so much.
We have a second question. I kind of have three questions for you.
3 questions.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You said that you started getting a feel to economic development somewhere around the late 2000s. Didn't the awful economic situation in the States kind of discourage you a little?
I wanted to do economic development. Did the situation in the States discourage me from?
Wasn't there like a very also, the money crisis in the States somewhere around 2008?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I actually worked at a bank called Lehman Brothers, so that was, if you guys are students of history. But I left before the crash. But I mean, those two didn't have anything to do with each other. One was financial crisis in the U.S., and the other one was economic development, which was just something. I mean, the reason why I wanted to do economic development, I grew up in China, saw economic development through my youth, studied economics. I thought back then that maybe if I were to want to work in economic development, I should study economics. I didn't really know what economic development was or how to do it, but it was just something I wanted to kind of explore at the time.
Also, my second question is, you said that for Paraşüt you have 3 co-founders. How did you solve conflict of opinion? Like, what if one person just did not agree with a decision that you wanted to take?
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. with my co-founders. Fari, I'm not sure you guys are listening. Love you guys. I was very lucky. Now, we did have a chance of working together. We knew each other for 2-3 years before then. Not as friends, but as acquaintances. We talk, and then before the company actually got incorporated, we had many months of working together. So we built a certain rapport with each other, built a certain rhythm of working with each other. So we knew we could get along. There were conflicts that came up. We had different personalities. At the beginning, maybe less though, or maybe I still am. I'm a stubborn guy. Andash is also stubborn. So Andash, sorry. But then Fari he was kind of, he could listen to us, listen to my opinions, listen on Andash's opinions. He kind of acted as sort of the glue or the mediator between us. But then after a while, we recognized our own personalities more by, being able to challenge each other. We respected each other. That always kept things together. We had a common goal, which was to make the startup successful. We trusted each other to be capable, smart, honest. So we had all those. But then if there are conflicts, then we say, look, here's a conflict that's going on. We recognize it. We recognize that we're going to be reacting to it through our personalities, and then we recognize our personalities and how to deal with those personalities. But then we would say, look, let's lay those differences aside because we have a common goal. And then there were roles and responsibilities that we talked about as well. I, as CEO, would have to make the business decisions that I would need to listen to my co-founders, but they trusted me to make that business decision at the end of the day. It was the wrong decision. I owned up to it. But then if they disagreed and I listened to them properly, then we would say, look, we agree to disagree, but let's go with Sean's decision and see where it goes. So we were able to build that kind of working relationship.
This is my last question. I know you said there are language obstacles that to you seemed like nitty-gritty details that weren't as important, but what advice would you give to someone who's trying to enter the Turkish market, job market, I mean, with, I don't want to say little to no knowledge of Turkish, but very A1, A2, it's not advanced enough for me to give and take with someone. So do I work on my language first? Do I work on my resume
absolutely.
first?
Don't do what I did. I still speak crappy Turkish after 12 years. It's really embarrassing. I've gotten lazy and gotten to figure out a way to go around without. But you should really learn. Try to make as many Turkish friends and just try to speak Turkish as much as you can. I have many foreign friends here who speak absolutely perfect Turkish after living here just a couple of years. So it is an effort that you make, and you should. And you'll find that your experience here will be more rewarding too, because you'll just get to know the country and the society and culture and history and everything better.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to know how you managed to, in the beginning, get people, your employees, your co-founders, to run with the idea with the same passion with which you had conceived it. And so that's question number one. And I did ask this question back in 2018, I believe. I just can't remember
the last time.
Yes, I can't remember the answer to that. Second question is, first of all, do you have an exit strategy? And
Let me answer the first question before I forget the first question.
Sure.
You try to remember your second question. So how did I get other people to believe? So again, cliche, I fell in love with the problem. That passion of me falling in love with the problem is infectious. So when I started talking about the problem, I would get really excited. I would say, look, we have a solution. We can build this thing. I'm not a great actor, faker. So if I don't believe in it, I don't say it, and I don't act it. But when I really do believe in it, all those emotions just show on my face, and then people recognize that and they react to that. So that helped a lot. If you are an entrepreneur, if you're in the CEO role, after a while you will need to learn how to sell. I'm not a salesman. I'm not a great salesman, but when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to fundraising, I had to learn how to do all of that and be able to have those emotions, have that excitement, phrase my talk, my pitch, whatever you want to call it, phrase it in the right way so people understand, so I can persuade other people. And that's a skill you also practice, but still it comes down to if you fall in love with that problem, then I think other people will see it. And frankly, I think it's human nature to want to work on something that you judge to be impactful, that is impactful for society, impactful for other people. So if you don't have the idea, but you find someone who has the idea that you trust, that you want to work with, and it is infectious. People do want to believe in you and work with you.
Okay, so this time around I'll try to know the answer. Thank you. So the second one,
I don't know how I answered it back in 2018.
Okay, so the second one, now there's three. The second one,
There's three.
now there's three. There was just going to be two. Anyway, the second one is when you hire people, how do you identify which ones are the best ones for the role? Because that can be a big challenge, and especially back in 2013, let's say up to like 2016, even the first 3 years, it's important to hire people that will really have an impact on the company and help push the mission forward. How did you manage that, or how do you manage that?
I mean, at the beginning of the company, we weren't even sure what the rules are, what we needed. So at the beginning, we were hiring people who believed in our idea, that we got along with, that impressed us in one way or another. Impressed us because we had a conversation and they said something, they taught me something during that conversation. Impressed us because of their passion, their excitement, something they did in school or in work, or so for example, we had this one person who was involved in so many different other activities, was always positive, so that kind of energy it was really good for a beginning startup to have that kind of energy on the team. And that same person, actually, we hired her for one role, but realized that that role wasn't going to work out the way we thought it was, and we needed to change. And we spoke, can you modify and do this other role? And she wanted to do this other role. And so at the beginning, it was really about that, finding someone who impressed us some way, who believed in the mission, that fit with our team culture. And as the company got bigger and the roles got more defined, then you find more maybe subject expertise people with more experience that can bring experience and scale a team, or bring that knowledge and build a product, build a team much faster. So it was different.
Alright, so the last one, first of all, is there an exit strategy, and have there been propositions for acquisitions?
So actually, there has already been an exit. This happened back in 2019, July 2019. We were acquired by Micro Group. So actually, this was Turkven and Early Bird. Turkven is a private equity firm. Early Bird is a VC fund. They formed a fund. They purchased Micro Yazılım, Zirve Yazılım, and then Paraşüt Yazılım. So it was 3 companies. And they continue to make other acquisitions, but the idea is to bring together financial management software in the market under one umbrella called Micro Group, and we would be able to provide business financial management software to all small businesses in the market. So 2019 we exited.
Okay, so when that acquisition happened, I suppose there may be a number of reasons it happens, but in your opinion right now, do you think it was the right move? And when you juxtapose that with the idea of having many different players in the same field, and of course strong and healthy competition, making sure that the end user or the customer gets the best possible product. So was it the right call? And why couldn't you maybe remain yourselves and not be acquired so that there's healthy competition between different players?
Yeah, so Micro Group, Micro aims for, so they actually started with on-premise software. So remember I was saying there was software that required servers. So they served slightly larger businesses, let's say 50 employees, 20 to 50 employees. We are like 5 to 10 employees. We're on the smaller business side. Zirve serves CPAs, certified public accountants. In Turkish, it's Mali Mushavirs. So Paraşüt small business customers usually outsource their accounting to a certified public accountant, a Mali Mushavir. So Paraşüt and Zirve works really nicely together. We have integration where our small businesses accountants would use Zirve, but the small business would use Paraşüt. The softwares talk to each other. So in terms of an acquisition decision, it made sense for those two parts to be combined. In fact, what we were working on before the acquisition was combining our software. We call our software bookkeeping. In Turkish, it's on muhasebe. So we were combining bookkeeping with accounting. Accounting is muhasebe in Turkish, right? So we were already working on that strategy. And when Turkven approached us, it made a lot of sense to be part of the group, because as part of the group, we would be able to grow a lot faster, and more importantly, we would be able to have the perfect combination of products to service our small business customers. So it made a lot of sense. We grew a lot after the acquisition, so in hindsight, maybe we could have waited a little bit more and had a bigger exit, but at the time it just made a lot of sense, so I'm not going to really think about, again, a parallel universe where we waited a little bit longer.
All right, thank you. I think that's it.
Hello, my name is Ada. I want to ask, you said you fall in love with problem. Can we say it is a well-educated, from a well-educated eye, not from like an Eureka moment? Can we say this? Because when you say falling in love with the problem, it's like more like you're kind of like, oh yes, I have to do it. But I think it wasn't like that. You get this idea after a very good education, and
Absolutely.
and your mind evolved during the process and everything. Can you say
Absolutely.
this?
I mean, so I studied economics for 4 years. So somewhere in there, obviously I was thinking about businesses, how businesses work. I worked in finance, investment banking, private equity. I worked there for 4 years, so I was interacting with finance and accounting a lot. When I was working at the NGO here, I was consulting small businesses, startups. So I was interacting with their problems a lot for 2 years. So yeah, it was a culmination of a lot of things. And I think my advice to you guys, remember, was just explore, right? Try a lot of things, explore, talk to people in problem areas that in your field or adjacent fields or anywhere. Just talk and explore, because all the culmination of everything you guys study in college, all the experiences you have, all the conversations you have, all the content you consume, that's going to form the eureka moment. Never comes in a vacuum. I think the bad thing about COVID, we all been in a vacuum so much, and we always have to explore and learn, and after a while, it just kind of digests in your brain somewhere, and then one day you're gonna come up and say, "Look, eureka moment. There is a problem. I have to work on it."
I also want to ask, also falling in love with a problem means internalize it and personalize it. Did you have any disadvantage of this? Because You may take stuff personal when you love your problem a lot.
So, did making the problem personal, was that a disadvantage? Was that your question?
Yes. Did you see any disadvantage of it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you fall in love with the problem so much, but you're not really receptive to negative feedback, you're not receptive to counterfactuals, you know, things that prove you wrong, then you're gonna have a bias, right? So I always try to recognize the biases that I have. So I fell in love with the problem, but then I spoke to people, I spoke to customers, I spoke to, you know, entrepreneurs, investors, try to get their feedback. And then I try to analyze that. Okay, is this right? Does that change what I understand about the problem? And if it didn't, then I dismiss it. If it did, then okay, let's you know, reshape my hypothesis. Maybe the problem goes slightly different. And in fact, it has. At the beginning, I wanted to only build an invoicing software, and then as I understood the problem a little bit more, that invoicing software became a bookkeeping software. And that bookkeeping software became a bookkeeping plus accounting software. And that became something else. And the problem keeps shaping as well, the more I understand it. But always be aware of your own biases.